Let's go to Victoria and catch up on this quarantine shambles. I'm joined by the Liberal Party's opposition spokesperson on police issues, David Southwick. Thanks for joining us again, David.
Mr. Chris.
This seems to be self-harm, given what we've learned about sexual relationships, sharing cigarettes, all sorts of quarantine rules being broken by private contractors.
This is a shambolic mess, Chris. We have, as a result of just bad leadership by Daniel Andrews, 300,000 people now that have been let down and are now back in lockdown. And what we're seeing is a situation of people that have gone into hotel quarantine expecting for this to be properly managed. And don't forget, these hotels have effectively been taken over by the health department and managed by the health department under the auspice of the Minister for Health. And we've got private security guards running a complete muck, being outsourced, being contracted out. We've contracted out people's community safety. And there are allegations, as you said, of sexual activity, of not proper PPE, not proper training, the virus effectively being spread by these security guards. And I'm told also cash payments for many of these security guards being employed. So we've had ghosting where allegations where security guards have been signed on meant to be working shifts but are not working shifts. And we've also been told that you've got security companies that have been contracted by Daniel Andrews and his government, effectively on-selling those contracts 2 or 3 times, and then ultimately someone being paid cash money to effectively manage these people in quarantine. It's an absolute mess. And again, Daniel Andrews has failed to keep us safe here in Victoria.
It just seems such a strange thing because he's a left-of-centre politician. He's a big government guy. And as a small government person, I would say that defence, border security, public health, these are the areas where you always should have government employees running the show. That's what occurred successfully in New South Wales. Is it being fixed now? Do you think it's been actively redressed?
Well, we still don't know. We still don't know. We've got a lot of questions that we've got in place. We're calling for the Minister for Health to be sacked because this has been under her auspice. The Minister effectively manages these hotel quarantine facilities and has signed off contracts that have allowed this kind of, well, there's no better word to call it, but corruption and scandal to play out. As we say, we are such a mess here in Victoria. When other states are coming out of lockdown, getting on with their business, we've got 300,000 people in 10 postcodes that are going back into lockdown, that have got their livelihoods at stake. And this is all pointed to Daniel Andrews that has sent mixed messages, that can't manage these contracts, that hasn't been able to do any of these things correctly. And don't forget, Chris, he's refused help from the ADF. The ADF has said, we'll come in and help you. The federal government have said, we'll come in and help and manage these hotels. And Daniel Andrews has said, no, don't worry about it. We'll look after it. And now we see corruption allegations by these security guards that have been contracted out. Our security, our health and well-being and livelihoods of all Victorians have now been jeopardised by this horrible Premier, Daniel Andrews, that is already facing all the other corruption allegations that we've seen with 3 ministers sacked, and now we have to deal with this. It's hopeless.
Now, I mentioned that quarantine has been managed well by police and other authorities in New South Wales. Of course, the big mistake in New South Wales was a whole bunch off the Ruby Princess they didn't put into quarantine. So we've had 2 major state government stuff-ups here that have accounted for a large level of community infection in Victoria and New South Wales, a Liberal government and a Labor government. Both of them have set up judicial inquiries into the mistakes. Is this just a way of trying to stifle the debate or accountability in the near time, or is this what was required?
Well, we're told in Victoria we've now got a judicial inquiry costing taxpayers $3 million that will report in 3 months. And let me say, we need some answers right now, Chris. We need to ensure that those people in those facilities are safe and we're not spreading the virus. So there's some immediate answers need to be answered here. But again, we're told, at least in New South Wales, the Premier seemed to get on top of it, and it is a public inquiry in which ministers and others will be called. And I'm told that at least the public will be involved in the process.
I think you're. I think what the public deserves in both cases is quick accountability and transparency,
Agreed.
and I think these
Agreed.
inquiries just delay that. Just briefly, because we're nearly out of time. Do you think the lockdowns of the suburbs have gone too far? We know already they're not working because at least 5 people out of the lockdown areas have turned up in Sydney Airport this afternoon.
Well, the problem is these lockdowns shouldn't have happened in the first place, and they're only there because of the mismanagement and the bad signalling. So, Chris, let me just quickly remind you, we have a situation where this Premier allows a protest of 10,000 people to go ahead. Yesterday, we had 250 CFMEU protesters out on the streets, and he slapped $1,600 fine for 250 protesters. That's $6 a head. What sort of message does this send for people to go off and do the wrong thing? The reason why we're failing in Victoria is we have a Premier that lacks leadership and has mixed messaging and doesn't bring the community along with him. We are in a shambolic mess, and if we've got to lock down suburbs, so be it. But at least communicate with the people, tell people what we're doing, and bring the community with you. This guy is a dictator. Daniel Andrews has no leadership.
All
and
right,
we are in the mess because of him.
Thanks for joining us, David. I appreciate it.
Good on you. That's a pleasure, Chris.
David Southwick there, who's the opposition police spokesperson in Victoria.